Hello, my name is Savanna Good-Turney, and today I'll be presenting Allies in Every Corner, Suicide Prevention through Training of Social Workers, School Faculty, and Community Members. Suicide is a public health concern that affects tens of thousands of people nationwide, and hundreds of thousands and up to millions when you broaden the view to a worldwide scope. In 2017 alone, there were over 1 million recorded suicide attempts, with about 47,000 cases ending in completion or death in America. The Center for Disease Control reports that suicide rates have increased between 24 and 36% in the United States since 1999. In the United States, suicide is in the top 10 leading cases of death. Previous research shows that many factors can increase the risk of suicide, one major factor being stressors in life, such as financial struggles, belonging to a minority group, or countless other stress inducers. Another major factor is comorbidity, or the presence of more than one mental health disorder at once. Comorbidity of specific disorders such as depression and post-traumatic stress disorder can increase one's risk for suicidal ideations and attempts at an estimated 30%. Depression and post-traumatic stress disorder can also be causes of social isolation. As many of us here today know, within our field, it is not uncommon to encounter a client with a mental health disorder. In fact, clients with mental health disorders, diagnosed or otherwise, are our primary clientele in most cases. Due to the stipulation in demographics, it is likely that us social workers will encounter clients who are struggling with suicidal ideation at some point as well. As observed by many statistic reporters, researchers in the field, and scholars, social work curriculum and training is far from well equipped when it comes to suicide prevention, and even just the basics of understanding and interacting with suicidal clients. Due to the rise in suicide rates, there is a statistical implication of an increase in suicidal clients we will encounter in our time in the field. It is obvious then that the responsibility of lowering the rates of suicide depends on people like us and others in our communities who interact with these suicidally prone populations within their daily lives. One avenue we can take to work toward decreasing suicide rates is to address the grand challenge of working to eradicate social isolation. And how can we do this? We can begin to eradicate social isolation through fostering connections at every level, brought about by mandated suicide prevention trainings for social workers, school faculty members at every level, and community members as well. We who interact with these clients must have proper training on the warning signs, preventative measures that have been shown to be effective, and training on how to safely engage with a suicidal client in crisis. As with any person in crisis, suicidal clients can act irrationally, and because of the severity of their crisis, it can be quite literally a life or death critical interaction. When surveyed, social workers in the field reported that 93% have encountered clients who were diagnosed as suicidal. Of those surveyed, 67% of the social workers also reported having training that was not up to par with the needs of their high-risk clientele. Currently, the Jason Flatt Act, a suicide prevention policy already in action as implemented in the state of Kansas, requires school staff to partake in 1 hour's worth of suicide prevention training per calendar year. This training consists of education on how to recognize suicidal behavior and tendencies, how to intervene safely with at-risk students, and helpful knowledge to help in decreasing rates of suicide among school-aged youth. However, 1 hour is not nearly enough training for an issue with such grave potential consequences. And even worse, as it stands right now, school staff members can complete their training independently and without any official supervision, sign-off, or accountability from administration. Teachers and staff then have the responsibility of sharing this learning with parents, students, and other members of the community. One social work theory that I believe embodies the importance of a multifaceted approach to suicide prevention is that of systems theory. Within systems theory, there is the concept and understanding that individuals are affected by multiple systems in their life at once. A system is understood to be based on individual needs, rewards, expectations, and attributes of those living within the system. One person's experience is dependent on their interactions with the different systems around them. Systems theory also holds the idea that because of our influence on one another, it is the responsibility, to a degree, of all systems, whether they be individual, family, community, or organizational, to work together on solving commonly occurring issues. This, to me, ties perfectly into the idea that there is such great importance in human connection in the presence of multiple forces at every level and within every system acting as a resource and support for individuals facing suicidality. Each system plays a role, and if we can provide a positive support within each level of these roles and influences played out, we can provide healthier systems to help alleviate the negative symptoms of social isolation that often lead to or increase the risk of suicide. With systems theory in mind, we can move on to discuss one of the pillars of advanced generalist practice, and that is empowerment. Through systems theory and a strength-based approach, we can work with our clients to empower them using their own strengths and positive characteristics, but also by helping them to recognize the supports available to them within their surrounding systems. One of the great struggles within any cause of suicidality is oftentimes the social isolation we are addressing in this current conversation. By analyzing a client's systems and finding and building up their supports, we are able to close the gap between an isolated client and those who are there for them. Through resource navigation, relationship building, and safety planning, we can empower our suicidal clients by helping them to discover and believe that they are not truly as alone as they feel, and that there are always other options available. Of course, being sure to provide this lens while being sure to continue to validate their feelings, regardless of the supports we help them to find. Moving on to another of the three pillars, let's talk about cultural competency. When working with any client, it is important that we providers understand their background and the culture in which they live. Sometimes the need for understanding is made even more great. For example, we know that there are some cultures that are more high risk when it comes to suicidality. These include largely marginalized groups, such as members of the LGBTQ+ community, clients with low socioeconomic status, minority groups, middle-class folks who have been affected by the financial challenges and other challenges of COVID-19, and more. It is important also that we understand these high-risk populations and what all goes into why they are at such higher risk. While this cultural competency is critical, we must also keep in mind the unique experience of suicide culture and understanding that suicide knows no bias. Suicide can affect any population, any race, any social class, any health category, any person at any time. The topic of suicide prevention and advocacy for better resource training for social workers, school faculty, and community members ties into many of the CSWE competencies. Firstly, we can focus on competency 4, engaging in practice-informed research and research-informed practice. In order to provide proper care to suicidal clients and to provide supports for them within their schools and communities, we must be utilizing the research and the information that is known on how to approach such a critical topic. This presentation can be observed as a call for action for us social workers to behave as advocates and follow competency 5 by engaging in policy practice. We must use our voices of change to advocate for these trainings to be developed, mandated, and accessible at every level and within every system that impacts our vulnerable clients. Through this advocacy and the participation and implementation of these trainings, we will be engaging in both competency 6 and competency 8, engaging and intervening with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. Of the 6 NASW core values, there are 2 that connect well with this proposal of taking a multi-systems approach to suicide prevention. Those are the importance of human relationships and competence. The understanding of the importance of human relationships highlights the importance of interventions at every level and the benefit of building support systems to mitigate and eradicate social isolation, feelings of loneliness, and the negative symptoms caused from both that have often been shown to lead to suicidality. Our competence regarding suicide risk, prevention, warning signs, and how to counteract such things is critical to our ability to treat suicidal clients. Continuing on, as previously mentioned, it is important that we social workers understand the different cultural aspects affecting our clients, specifically the aspects within our high-risk cultures in which suicidality is more prominent. And this is exactly why these informative trainings must be mandated, more carefully monitored, and utilized across the board. In conclusion, our training with our social work curriculum and field within schools and in our communities are lacking greatly. In order to get the proper resources to these helping professionals, it is necessary that we explore policies, acts, and expectations that are currently in place in order to find gaps where policies should be placed. State and federally mandated training in suicide awareness, education, prevention, and intervention is obviously needed and could potentially save countless lives in the long run if implemented correctly. As stated previously, when we analyze the statistics and look at how high the rates of suicide rates still are, it becomes abundantly clear that our current trainings and education in place are not nearly as adequate as they need to be. Furthermore, more extensive training would not only help our clients, but would also help us providers as well. As a social worker working with a suicidal client, the chance that the client does take action and commit suicide is a critical risk involving more than just the client themselves. The consequences are obviously great, but would not only affect the client and their families, but also the clinician and their other clients as well. A clinician who has lost a client to suicide has greater risk and prevalence of negative mental health symptoms to follow, higher risk of suicidality themselves, and without a doubt, there would be an undeniable effect on their ability to properly continue care for their remaining clients. This problem is so much larger than the attention it has been given thus far. And so, my proposed revisions of the Jason Flatt Act include numerous additions to the existing policy in various aspects. The proposal includes the training of social workers and their utilization as more prevalent resource within schools and communities. The next revision would enhance the extensiveness of the trainings provided to staff, as well as who is required to be trained, including all staff, such as janitorial staff, paras, substitutes, lunch workers, etc. I believe it is important for youth to have a chance at positive and informed intervention connection with every interaction available to them. It also includes more accountability to be held for these trainings, such as more training hours required, more content covered, and an official sign-off to be done in order for certification to be provided. Furthermore, this proposal suggests incorporating more expansive outreach to the community surrounding these schools. As social workers, it is our role to advocate for such changes to be made. On the macro level, we have to go to our legislators with the statistics and facts and demand that a more effective approach be taken to such a pressing issue plaguing our society. It is up to us to advocate for these changes in order to make suicide prevention trainings mandated at every level and in turn provide youth with preventative and connected care within every system they interact with. These changes in understanding and required education will help to foster healthy and informed connections in order to eradicate social isolation and decrease suicide rates that are so rapidly on the rise as we speak. Thank you so much.